Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 6th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. The first item of the agenda this evening is the adoption of the minutes of October 23rd. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Burden. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Next, I have the minutes of the council meeting held October 30th. I need a mover and a seconder that the minutes of the council meeting held October 30th, 2017 be adopted. Councillor Oates, Councillor Beale. Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to take this opportunity to put forward, actually, I had one motion, but I'm going to do them each separately. Part of the reason I'm going to do this is we have a policy in place about people coming to council and organizations coming to council. And there's a process that needs to be followed, and I would like to reconsider some of these motions were put forward in the budget discussions last Monday. And I apologize for not being here. I was ill. And so I would like to start with, I have them all together, but I'm going to read them separately. Yes.
The reconsideration could be done as a block, and then arising out of the reconsideration, each one could be debated separately.
Okay. That Resolution 17-294 regarding ongoing grant in the amount of $7,500 to the Parksville District Chamber of Commerce for Canada Day activities to be included in the 2018 budget. 1703 regarding an ongoing operational grants to Tidal Treasure Society in the amount of $3,000 to be included in the 2018 budget. And 117304 regarding an ongoing grant to the Parksville Museum in the amount of $5,000 to be included in the 2018 budget as adopted by Council at the meeting held on October 30th to be brought back for reconsideration. And I'm hoping after I read this out that we will have an opportunity to speak to them separately. So I'll move that.
Seconded by Councillor Patterson. Discussion on the motion. You're going to leave? Okay.
And so what I would like to do is have these reconsidered, because we do have a policy in place, policy number 3.37, resolution number 17-059, and it stipulates there's a whole procedure when people come to councils or organizations come to councils to request money in our budget. And so these were granted without, they weren't looked through through the lens of this policy. And so I would like them brought back to reconsider and have the groups come back again to present, following the steps in this, written details of financial or in-kind assistance, brief history of the organization and its principal purpose and mandate, names and contact information for the board of directors or authorized representatives of the organization or group, most recent consolidated financial statements, including a listing of current funding sources and open financial requests or grant applications in process, local member content who is served by the organization or group, and a summary of the anticipated direct or indirect benefits of the financial assistance to the citizens of Parksville. I think that it behooves us, when we're working on the budget, to have the taxpayer first and foremost, and so I hope that I'll have support for this.
Further discussions, Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to note for the record that the policy was referenced during those budget discussions, and Council chose to not adopt the policy or not follow the policy at that meeting. So it wasn't as if the people that were present at that budget meeting were ignorant to the policy. I actually brought it up myself, that the policy was in place, and encouraged Council to follow the policy, but they chose, as councils are wont to do and have the ability to do, they chose to make a decision based on the information they had before them at the time. Policy is a guiding document. It is not the absolute end-all and be-all. So I was aware of the policy last week when I voted on this, and so I just wanted to be clear that the policy was discussed by council at that meeting, and a decision was made as reflected in the minutes.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I did watch the meeting as recorded, and while it was brought up by yourself and Councillor Burton, there was no discussion by council about whether to acknowledge or follow the policy.
Any further discussion by members of council? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like Councillor Powell, I think about taxpayers and that first, and I wasn't at this meeting as well because of sickness. So I was really hopeful that there would be some more debate going forward, and I echo her sentiments that policy wasn't followed as much as I would have liked.
There was, I would say, vigorous debate on all of the items, and the people that were there, to the best of their ability, defended what they were putting forward. However, that's neither here nor there. If there are no further questions or comments, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That motion is carried. So we're moving on now. What do we do with Councillor Burton?
I'd like a...
Oh, be sure.
You could deal with the Chamber of Commerce
I did.
request for Canada Day first, if you like, and then he can come back after that.
Councillor Powell, you're going to make another motion, and I would ask that you leave out in this motion. No, I'm sorry.
We just passed a motion for reconsideration, and then what we should be doing is in reconsidering those motions as opposed to having a set plan with what's going to happen. So let's reconsider the motion as council, the majority of council just decided to do. My concern is that there'll be a motion of referral, and we don't get the opportunity to debate these things here tonight. So I'd like to have a debate on the motion for the Canada Day activities, which I thought we did last week, and last week I certainly wouldn't want to be singled out as the councillor that doesn't care about taxpayers' money and the decisions made in the absence of others that do. But we debated this last week, and we talked about it, and so I'd like to if we can have the same debate again for the benefit of those that weren't here. But the issue of the Canada Day parade is important to this community. It's something that it is probably the biggest single day event in the entire community. $7,500 to put into the budget to make sure that happens this year. I supported it then, and I still support it now.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. I too support Canada Day. However, they did not meet the criteria for the policy that we have. I think that we should be able to give the people the organizations who requested money to come forward between now and the next budget meeting and present to council exactly what they want with the general information required. Because right now we don't have that. And so I'm not prepared to make a decision about where this money or giving money to these organizations without that documentation.
Yes, go ahead. Okay.
So, Your Worship, the motion that is currently before council is the motion that was adopted on October 30th, which is a $7,500 grant. No. You're just dealing with the Chamber of Commerce right now, and it's a $7,500 grant to increase the Canada Day parade from $2,500 to $10,000. That's what the $7,500 does.
Okay, I'm going to. You're making the motion, Councillor Oates. You're calling the question. So the question simply: all those in favor? Opposed? Do that again.
What we're reconsidering, or in favor?
You're voting on the motion to approve the $7,500.
Thank you. So could you call? Yeah. Okay.
So Councillor Oates has a different
Okay, so
understanding.
you can call the question at any time and then vote on the motion. The motion is, as per page 7 of your minutes in the council agenda, that the $2,500 grant to the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce for Canada Day activities be increased by $7,500 and included in the 2018 budget. That is what you're voting on.
Okay, so everybody understand that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. All right.
Regarding... all right. Number 17301, regarding an ongoing operational grant to Title Treasure Society in the amount of $3,000 to be included in the 2018 budget.
Who wants to speak to that? Councillor Oates?
I believe that the Title Treasure Society has provided the necessary documentation. It was provided before. Some people had problems reading the PowerPoint on the document that was sent out to us. But they provided a brief outline of satisfying most of the things that are written there in the policy there, and they've since that have now supplied us with a balance sheet for their financials. So I fully support the Title Treasurer's $3,000 being included in the 2018 budget.
So I simply call the vote?
Question.
Yes. Who has a question? Anybody have a question? No? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay. Next.
17-304, regarding ongoing grant to the Parksville Museum in the amount of $5,000 to be included in the 2018 budget.
Discussion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Has the Parksville Museum sent in any financials, or have we ever seen? Have we requested?
Haven't we requested? We haven't?
No, Your Worship, because as of the last council meeting, council had approved it.
So the answer is there was a vigorous discussion of the item put forth by the council liaison at that time. Any further comments or questions on this particular issue? Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. And since I've looked into this, we have had they haven't provided us with any indication of where they're spending their money, but they did send out a notice about their AGM coming up, and it did have a brief outline of what they're spending their money on. However, because I brought this motion forward, I will not be supporting it because they haven't provided the financial details.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Worship, and I would like to support the museum. I would like to ask if it's possible to add that we do request financial information from them. Is it possible to do that as a follow-up, that we do this contingent on receiving that information?
You can certainly do that, but I would ask that you specify whether their funding would be dependent upon receiving that in council's consideration of it, or whether you want to approve the funding and just have it as a matter of record.
I'm thinking of this just as a matter of record so that it is a more complete dossier.
Councillor Oates.
Yeah, I'd like to move referral of this motion to the next budget meeting in anticipation of Councillor Salter being here as the liaison. I think that she has some very important insight into this particular issue, and I believe that it's not time sensitive, so the referral, no debate on referral.
You second it? I need a seconder. Councillor Burden seconds it. Okay. Further discussion? No, it's been referred. No discussion. Okay. Matter has been referred.
To vote on referral.
All those in favor? That's unanimous. All right. Thank you. Okay. Now, yes, Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to clarify, so if we have a policy and we don't follow the policy, so is it a motion in order to delete the policy, or how do we manage that?
Council can choose to repeal a policy at any time. Policies are adopted by resolution. They can be repealed by resolution. Council chooses.
Okay. Next item is the approval of the agenda for November 6, 2017. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Rhodes, seconded by Councillor Burden. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Members of Council, we have two delegations this evening. The first delegation is the Parksville Community and Conference Center, the 2018 annual budget and 5-year financial plan. This is Spruit. Welcome. You're all alone this evening?
Apparently.
Where's all your support? They let you come on your own?
I guess they did.
Oh, you've been abandoned. Okay, go ahead, Mrs. Rood.
Good evening. I'm going to do a little bit of a PowerPoint just to give you a little bit of a comparison between 2017, where we ended up, and where we're projecting for 2018. I have adjusted our revenues for 2018. We were having, as you know, we projected with certain things. What we did was, with the whole center rental was not meeting its goal that we had set. It's not meeting it, so we've brought it down. It does make a big difference. Hopefully this will make it a little bit more genuine as to what our revenues are. That is the only one in our rental pool that isn't meeting its expectations that we had. In 2017, we have secured the following large bookings. We have the Quilters Guild, which meets once a month, and we've secured a contract for 3 years for them. We've secured the Parksville Qualicum Fish and Game Banquet and their monthly meetings. Duck Unlimited just had their annual banquet, and we have secured them for next year. We secured Immigration Canada. We had 2 Canadian swearing-in ceremonies here, one in the spring and one just in the summer. We had over 500 new Canadian citizens come through our building. Our top customers for sales was GM Canada, the Bolinas Grad Committee. The Bolinas Grad Committee, that consists of their dance, their fundraisers. They had 3 different fundraisers in there. Weight Watchers, Jackie Babrick, that was a double wedding. Immigration Canada. We also hosted the Homeless Fair for the 4th year. We do the Breakfast with Santa. We partnered with 2 different groups that help the seniors, Mind in Motion, which is a group for dementia, and Parkinson's support group. These are the hours that the center was used. As you can see, some months were very busy. A lot of the numbers on your right-hand side are the number of groups that have used it. So our nonprofit groups are still well outnumbering our commercial. This is the history of the groups. We have worked hard to increase our new and return clients. 0 to 1, we had 36 nonprofit, 30 commercial. 1 to 5, 62 nonprofit, 62 commercial. 6 to 13 years, nonprofit, 49, 15 commercial. Now these are mostly all returning customers. Now some of the differences we had in our revenue, some of it was down in 2016. Right now, everything is good. Like I said, the only thing in our revenue that is a little bit different is the rental for the one group, which is the rental at the whole. The catering projections were down. Special events were down a bit. Set up and take down. But everything is actually quite good. So we've saved some money in wages. Building, we've really cut back from what we had put. We put a freeze on a lot of our things, so we're running very, very tight. We ended up giving you guys back $2,363. We do a 50-50 split, and that was with the revenue that we had generated extra from cutting back in our costs. That's it.
Any questions for the Executive Director from members of Council? Councillor Burton.
So in looking at your revenue per date from rentals and your projections both on the screen and on your budget, those projections that you mentioned, are they based on bookings that you already have for October, November, and December?
No.
So you're...
But the up to September, it was just what we've already had. That
Right.
doesn't include the ones that we're having.
Right, but do you have bookings confirmed for October, November, and December that add up to somewhere in the neighborhood of $70,000?
Yes.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up. Going through your budget, I noticed that there's been no change in your budget for your marketing. Have you considered making some adjustments there to improve your numbers?
We have. We have been, this year we did do the wedding fairs. That worked very well for us. We actually secured 5 different weddings, and all of them were entire facilities. And as I said, the one was a multi, the one couple had 2 weddings. Yes, they did. It was quite interesting, but we've also marketed in some of the advertising and things, but we are always open to look. We have been going to some trade fairs and things as well. So.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. So I'm curious, when we had the consultant, he talked about the website, and I see that you've only got $37.90 spent on the website, and so it was my understanding the website was to be revamped, and now we're in November. And so do you vision spending that or getting the website upgraded in the next 2 months?
We are looking at it. We have been in communication with the web designer, so we're hoping that they come up with something. We do have a few hiccups with the website designer right now, so we're trying to work it out. I do have my front-end staff looking into different options, so there is a very big possibility that that money will be gone before the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any further questions from members of Council? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation and the information in advance. I was curious, in Appendix 3, the budget capital expenditures, and there's quite a list of required items, but many of those, there's dollar figures beside them, but I don't see them in the 5-year plan. Is it just, are these estimates for when they come, and some of these seem to be the same figures as in previous years. So I was just curious if you could explain that.
Okay, what I do with the breakdown for the administration, the building, the things is I take the budget and I take the items and I break them down. So they get put into the different categories and they are spent. So I don't break down each individual, like kitchen equipment and things. It goes under the different things, because if we did that, our expenditure would be huge. So I hope I'm explaining it properly. Basically, we break it down into the different sections, like the administration, the building. But I don't itemize the things on it. It just gets punched.
Follow up, I don't think I explained that. well, excuse me. So for instance, we've got stage curtains with an amount of money, and I could see that that's expected, that expense is to be spread out over 2 years in 2020 and 2021. And then there's bar upgrades at 8,000, but it's nowhere there. So is it just a leftover, or it's that one day in the future, or
It's
not?
one day in the future. If there's nothing there, it's just something that we're looking at, but we haven't put it into the plan yet.
Oh, okay. Like it's more like a wish list as
Yeah.
opposed to a must-do
Yeah,
list.
and that's basically what I do is we get the staff together and we say, okay, what is really missing in our building? What do we really need to work on?
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. I'm looking at Appendix 3 in the budget capital expenditures. Can you just give me some information on this page? Because it says required items, but then you've got it budgeted out, and you only have a few items that are in that 5-year next plan. So have they been spent, or are they still wish lists?
The items that have the carpeting we have done, the tiling will need to be redone, so that's why there's no price beside it. The seaside refurbishing is part of the grant that we're working with the city, and rather than doing the seaside, the city had requested that we do the lobby rather than that, so that's where that went. The tables and chairs we've gotten. Cutlery we got last year, so this is sort of a running tally. If you want, what I can do for next year is put
Done.
acquired.
And that, has the bar upgrades been completed?
No, they have not.
And you're not projecting them in the next 5 years?
No. Just mainly because it's not what I consider a high priority.
Same with the painting?
The painting is actually part of the grant that we have with the city, and it's getting done right now.
And just another follow-up. And windows and lights, is that an ongoing BC Hydro?
Actually, I've already done the lights. We secured all the BC Hydro grants for that.
Okay. The stove in the kitchen, 25,000.
We did get the double ovens, but we did not get the stove yet, but we're in the process of looking at equipment right now. So.
Thank you.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. Didn't we get banquet chairs a couple of years ago?
Yes.
So that's out of there?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry. You said in your opening remarks that you weren't going to meet this year's budget with regard to the rentals. This is up to September 20th, so October, November, December, any chance of that figure going up?
Oh, it will go up. It will definitely go up. But we're just not going to meet for the whole center. We're not going to meet the 30,000
You're not going to meet the 131,000?
No.
Okay.
No. But the other ones, all the other meeting rooms and spaces are pretty much dead on.
Yeah, okay. Any particular reason for, like the ones that are really, really low are the rotary kitchen rentals and the Gary Oaks and the Red Cedars, just people just not interested in renting them, or?
A lot of times what is happening is people will rent the entire facility to monopolize the different rooms. It just depends on the groups, but they are getting utilized. The only one place that really doesn't get utilized a lot is the Lions Bar area. And again, that is because we have a policy in place that it can only be rented out with the seaside, unless there's nothing else in, and then you can rent the front for like a social.
The pickleball players tell me that they're going to be using your facility this year. Have you any idea what kind of revenue that might generate? I guess they're pretty keen on playing pickleball in the wintertime.
I've just made a deal with the RDN. We're doing a trial basis. They are actually in the building already. They've started. It's not going to be, it's a 2-hour booking, but it's a consistent booking, which will fill up the seaside when we're not busy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beal.
Thank you. On the same page, on page 12 of 53, something that I had noticed with the rentals is that over the looking back over the years from 2015, that the budget and the actual seem to fall short by almost close to $30,000 in 2015, a similar amount again 2016, and it looks like it's going to fall short again in 2017. So I see that the estimate, the budget for 2018 has dropped somewhat. Is this in response to seeing
that is the response to, like, we sat down and crunched all the numbers and said, okay, this is just not how we projected. This is not working, so we need to pull it back and be more realistic on getting it, because there's no point coming here every year and getting beat on saying you can't keep doing that. And so we are trying. We did listen. We did come back, and we are trying to make it so it's more feasible.
Okay, I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you.
Any further questions from members of council? Councillor Oates.
So I noticed that the requisition that the budget for 2018 from the city is slightly different than it was, slightly less than what it was last year. And I noticed in your 5-year plan you're projecting a decreasing amount bound from the city. So I appreciate the in-depth budget. I hope that you can meet those targets, and I believe that your board of directors have responded to the concerns of council, and I want to thank you for the efforts that you've done thus far.
Thank you.
On that note, does council wish to approve the budget and financial plan as presented this evening?
I'll move approval of the budget as presented.
Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Beal. Discussion on that motion that the council approves the budget and financial plan as presented. No discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Congratulate your board for keep up the good work. Maybe you'll make some money with pickleballers. You never know. You might want to eat and drink at the same time. Okay, our next presentation is the Oceanside Youth Soccer Society, and this is a name I haven't said in a long time. Suzanne Beauchesne. What do you get, Beauchesne? And John Cooper of the Oceanside Youth Soccer Society. So I haven't said Beauchesne in a long, long time. Welcome. So go ahead. You have 10 minutes.
Okay, is that working? Okay, is that better? Thank you very much for the opportunity to come to you today to present some of our society concerns. I'm Suzanne Beauchesne, as mentioned, President of Oceanside Youth Soccer Society. I have with me John Cooper, one of our directors, and Steve Scott, another director, has also joined us and is in the audience. Just a little bit of background on our group. We have about 550 youth soccer players in our membership. We provide soccer playing opportunities for children aged 5 to 17. They age out at 18. Our entire board is extremely committed to providing the healthy opportunity to stay active and socialize in a team sport environment. We feel quite strongly about soccer being a great thing for young people. Hence our dedication to continuing to try to provide this opportunity for kids. To do this, our annual budget is about $125,000, just to give you an idea of the size of the group, and much of this money is spent here in Oceanside. Technical person? Advance. Oh, there we go. So you're probably well aware of the current situation with our local sports fields, but from our perspective, we really are struggling to have enough field time for the various user groups, ourselves being just one of many groups that require and need sporting facilities to function. In our community at this point in time, there are really only 3 fields that are currently safely usable for our needs. Sadly, the school board fields have fallen way behind in maintenance, and we just simply can't use them to provide soccer playing opportunities. They're really considered unsafe by most of the coaches. And that's fair enough, because the mowing schedule, the drainage issues, etc., really mean that we can't have kids playing soccer and consider it safe. So we're really looking at Parksville Community Park, Springwood, and Qualicum rec fields being our 3 options for providing our programs. As we all know, our community is growing, and yet there haven't been, to my knowledge, any new fields added for many, many years. And our community does not have an all-weather field, so we play on grass, which we all think is fantastic until it rains a lot, and then that also adds some challenges to playing sports on grass. This last couple of years, we've struggled considerably with our field allocations. Sorry. There we go. So this spring in particular, we were excluded from Parksville Community Park for our children aged 5 to 10 years old. We have been using that particular field for about the last 10 years, and Saturday mornings in Parksville, I feel, are enriched by the kids down in the park playing soccer. Unfortunately, this year we were told it was unavailable. We were then moved to Springwood, and then that became unavailable as well. And so we had to move our program to Qualicum. That might not seem like the biggest deal, except that when you're communicating with the number of families involved, making sure everyone gets the messages, and also obviously soccer goalposts aren't something you can throw in the back of your family sedan, so it's a fairly major deal to have to move mid-season. Makes the providing these programs really challenging if we don't know in advance where we're able to play, and able to tell families with small children where their Saturday morning activities are going to be. So we found it quite challenging this particular spring, and again in the fall we have had some challenges securing fields for soccer. So we are really interested in having a closer look at the field booking system and trying to get some security on whether or not we will have fields available to us at all.
Allocation is done by the RDN?
It is indeed, yes. And we've brought this to the attention of the Rec Committee. I just thought I would also mention it here, just so you're aware of the situation. So further to the grass field situation, we also wanted to point out that our community is it is the only community of this size south of Campbell River that doesn't have an all-weather field. Our society has been saving money, saving our pennies and nickels and dimes over the years, and we have accumulated a $200,000 dedicated field fund. it's taken a number of years, and now we're sort of sitting on that money. We would love to see a all-weather field here. It would help promote the sport, which we believe is a fantastic thing for kids to have an opportunity to do. It would also, obviously provide consistency if we can play in some of the wetter weather. And it would allow us to host tournaments and possibly bring in further people and revenue to Parksville or Oceanside if we can actually host tournaments. At the moment, we are not able to legitimately offer a tournament experience when it's so uncertain whether or not our fields will be playable. Having said that, we've got $200,000. Of course, turf field will cost significantly more than that, but we are going to be actively looking for partners and hope to help promote the turf field in this community. I think that's about all I have to say at the moment. John? No? Okay.
Have you read the RDN's master plan for the community for the recreational parks in Oceanside?
We were just at the rec committee meeting last month, and I was under the impression it was not yet produced. So no, I have not read it.
I have a copy. I'll send you a copy. Yes, I was going to refer to you, Councillor Patterson. Can you give us any update on where this stands?
Thank you, Your Worship. So currently it's in a draft form. It still has 3 more communities to present and have more feedback and everything from. I sit as the liaison for the District 69 Rec Commission, and was at the meeting where you came forward. And just a second, missed it.
Have you told the RDN you have this money set aside, $200,000 to give towards?
We did mention that at the RDN.
At the Parks and Rec Commission. So just a little bit of some history and everything too. The commission discussed the issues with the Oceanside youth soccer and moved and seconded that the information be received and the need for an increase in sports fields, including all weather, be considered high priority in the Recreation Services Master Plan. That was one. And then it was also seconded that them coming forward and presenting, such as to the City of Parksville, the Town of Qualicum Beach, the School District 69, and local field organizations to see if there's a need for a sport field allocation, which I felt was desperately needed. And also that that RDN staff explore funding opportunities for the construction of additional fields and all-weather turf field in District 69. So that is currently where things stand, in addition to the fact that the draft, it's just in draft form right now with the Recreation Services Master Plan, but that will be rolled out earlier in the spring once it's gone through the other communities. So I really do believe that your voice is being heard. I'm hoping that the allocation and that the RDN will seriously rethink how they allocate field use so that it's used to the best ability. I appreciate you coming forward. Thank you.
Have you been to the Qualicum Beach Council as well as the RDN board yet?
No, our intention was to also speak to Qualicum. I personally and our board felt that we just wanted to put it out there. We've been sitting on this money for a while now, and it seems a bit silly to have it in our back pocket and not let it be known. And yeah, we certainly do want to speak to Qualicum as well.
It's very expensive, is it not? What's a ballpark figure for a all-weather soccer field? $2 million?
Yeah, 1.5 was a number that we were told. There is other possibilities for us to get matching funding, so we would have $400,000, but that is still obviously short.
Okay. Councillor Beal and Councillor Burton.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation. So I'm hearing two issues. One is the lack of a shortage of adequate fields for playing soccer in particular, but other sports as well, I'm sure. But I'm also hearing that there's a bit of an issue with consistently getting certain fields. And have you been in discussion with have you met with the RDN about this? And I will just say as an aside, yes, I always expect and I actually look forward to when I drive by the community park to see the little kids, you know, the youngsters on the field. There's such a buzz of excitement and energy. So I'm just wondering if you have brought forth your concerns and if there is something that you know, any light at the end of the tunnel in order for you to get some consistency with booking fields.
We certainly have spoken with the RDN and numerous times, and for the moment they have assured us that we did indeed get the Parksville Community Park this fall. We had issues with the 11-year-old and older groups to get fields for them, but the little kids were given the community park back for Saturday mornings. The biggest concern that I have is that will be understood and going forward, because the booking system is quite uncertain. There's no rules that we can look to say whether or not is it the first come first serve basis, or is it a priority for a sport basis, or what have you. And I absolutely want all of the sports to have a chance to use these facilities. The 3 parks that I mentioned are fantastic grass fields with baseball diamonds and a chance for soccer kids to play as well. So and lacrosse as well uses the fields, and I would sincerely want all of them to have an opportunity. It's just for us to know for certain if we have a field, because that's how we, advertise our program, set it up, and it makes a big difference to people with small children if they suddenly find out we're not here in our backyard but over in the next community. Some people prefer that because they live closer, but when you've signed your child up for a particular Saturday morning activity, a lot of people need to know exactly where that's going to happen.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you. I certainly understand your pain. I spent 11 years with football in Nanaimo and field allocation meetings, and I've been out of it for an awfully long time. So I guess my question maybe is what is the current allocation system? And you just mentioned that you don't know if there's a guideline, a set of criteria, rules.
Well, that is the issue, and John and a couple of other board members went to a field users meeting that the RDN put on a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend that meeting, but the bottom line was that there isn't a defined policy. So I've had contradictions in whether it's a priority based on sport or first come, first serve, and we cannot, nobody can point to an exact policy. So,
through you to staff, is there a way that we can, how do we change that? I guess I'd like to help you, particularly with that issue. I don't think that, I know that there's a huge demand for fields, there has been forever, but there must be a way that we can get a message through to the regional district through you or through staff.
There's going to be 2 members of this council now sitting on the RDN board, so listening to you this evening, I wanted to call them today to get some feedback, but I thought I'd rather listen to you first and then get back to them. There is the cost is the big factor, but as Councillor Patterson said, this study is going on, and we'll certainly bring the issues to bear for Parksville on that study. But I have more questions for the RDN than I have answers. Somebody else had their hands up. Councillor Oates, did you have your hand up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for coming forward. I'm a big fan of sports tourism. I'm a big fan of increasing our recreation opportunities and increasing our recreation infrastructure. This sports field, I imagine, would not only would it be all weather, it'd be sort of all purpose as well, and not just exclusive to just soccer. Am I correct in that assumption?
That's absolutely true. I know that in our neighboring communities, football, soccer, other sports are able to use the turf, lacrosse as well.
Well, I applaud you for bringing it forward. I'm encouraged that the regional district has identified it as a high priority at the Recreation Committee level, and I believe it is one of the missing links that we need here in Oceanside. I'm cognizant of the costs of the initial investment in it, but I also I'm cognizant of the maintenance afterwards, and there may be some efficiencies there that may soften the blow when it comes with respect to the money part of it. So I think it's something that will happen here at some point. I'm just not sure when. But I know it's been talked about ever since I've been on council. I know it's been talked about that in particular here. My friends who have kids in Nanaimo are saying, you guys really need something up there because it's an embarrassment coming up there to play soccer, especially when it's raining. And so I've heard it from one particular friend of mine will be very happy to hear that this hit the radar here tonight. But, I wish you much success going forward, and I think it's an opportunity that we need to embrace.
Councillor Beale.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that there is a community input session for the Parks Recreation Master Plan, the RDN plan, coming up very soon at Oceanside Place. I'm sorry, I thought I had it in my phone calendar. I know I've got it on my paper calendar at home, and I'm wondering if someone here has that date. I wouldn't want to call on my memory because I've got so many things on my calendar I might mix it up, but it's coming up very, very soon. Does Councillor Patterson have the date there? She does, I think.
It's on the 22nd, is it not, Councillor Patterson?
So in our immediate area, it's Wednesday, November 22nd from 5:30 to 7:30 at Ocean Place Arena. We have 3 other ones as well on Monday, November 20th at Nanoose Place, Tuesday, November 21st in Qualicum Beach, and November 21st again at Aerosmith Hall, and then another on November 23rd at the Lighthouse Community Center. So those can be found at the rdn.bc.ca/recreation, the draft, and that too, or you can always ask them to send you one. But if your members could attend 1 or more or 3 meetings, would be awesome.
That sounds good, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm very familiar with all-weather fields because my granddaughters lived in Beauchesne a number of years ago, and I happened to be at the park with my granddaughters when they were playing soccer, when they were changing from a regular field to an all-weather field. I was so impressed because I could follow the progress of the installation, and I remember as a councillor at the time coming back and suggesting that maybe our community park, but the cost was through the roof. So I didn't get very far, but I think it's a different story if we're talking about Oceanside, and we'll certainly, from our perspective as a council, as a member of the Recreation Commission, and Councillor Oates and myself who sit on the RDN board, we'll get going on this as quickly as we can. And I would suggest that you go to the RDN board and make that presentation, because you've got other electoral area directors in Oceanside sitting there. You've got the representative from Nanoose, from French Creek, from Arrington Coombs, and from Deep Bay. So I would imagine all these kids come from all of these different areas. So I would do that, and I would also I would also, if you haven't been to Qualicum Beach Council, I'd go to Qualicum Beach Council too and bring them up to speed, so that because Qualicum Beach has a representative on the RDN board, and together, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. So we'll go together on this one. Thanks very much. We can't commit to too much tonight, but the die is cast, and we understand the need. And given the membership that you have, over 500 players. Just a last question for me. In the wintertime, do you play in the up the
At
road?
Arbutus Meadows?
Yeah.
This winter, we decided to, for this season, raise our fees and rent that for our Saturday games. We took that on as a bit of an experiment to see if people could afford it, for one thing, because our sport is one of the most economical, if not the most economical sport to put your children in, and we're quite proud of that and want to keep it an affordable sport for all families. But given for everyone who was here last winter, the winter that we had last winter, we decided that we would raise our fees a bit and have some indoor games and not lose a lot of our time because of the snow. I'm hoping, although I might be proven wrong, but I'm hoping that it's not going to be a repeat this winter, and we've rented it for no particular purpose. But yes, we are playing indoors some Saturdays.
Okay, well, you're on the radar, and stay on the radar, and make noise, make waves, and we'll keep in touch.
Okay, thank you all very much
Thanks
for
very
your
much.
support and allowing us this time this evening.
Thank you. Did you turn that off? No, I thought you. Sorry about that.
I thought about it. No.
I'm always turning it off and on. So the next item is the Fire Services Agreement Addendum 2017 to 2021. I want to remind members of council that the fire chief is in attendance for this, and he should be over at the training our firefighters. So I'm going to ask Mr. Butterworth to give us the background on this issue, and I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Oates. Mr. Butterworth, would you give us the details on this so we can let the fire chief get back to work?
Yes, Your Worship. The city's agreement with the RDN to provide fire protection services to several adjacent areas of the RDN expired at the end of 2016. The agreement, the Fire Services Agreement is a 2007 agreement and calls for 2 5-year renewal periods. The addendum included in the agenda is for the second 5-year renewal period. The renewal agreement increases the average contribution from the RDN by $171,000 per year for the 5 years of the agreement compared to the previous 5 years. The increase relates to budgeted cost increases over the next 5 years for the provision of fire services. The RDN board has approved the agreement, and staff is requesting council to also approve the 5-year addendum agreement, and the recommendation is as per the agenda.
Are there any questions for Mr. Butterworth? Seeing none, I have a mover and a seconder. I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Chief Norris, we'll let you go. Special dispensation, not having to stay for the rest of the meeting. Okay. The next item, the next report is Corfield Street upgrades and Jensen Avenue Trail construction tender award. I need a mover and a seconder for the 3 recommendations. Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Powell. Mr. Figueroa, would you please give us the background on this issue?
If I may, Your Worship, before council is a report to award the construction tender for the Corfield Street upgrades and Jensen Avenue Trail, or the Greenway. The works cover upgrading of Corfield from Highway 19A to Stanford Avenue, as well as a 3-meter wide, 400-meter long illuminated paved multi-use trail from Corfield Street to McVickers Street. As per our standard purchasing policy 6.14, the tender was advertised on BC Bid, supplemented with notifications to local contractors. 4 competitive bids were received. The lowest bid of $2,664,287.80 plus tax was submitted by Low Car Industries Limited. The bid is complete and responsive, and staff feel it represents good value for the city. There are sufficient funds available to complete the works. Staff recommendations are as per the report.
Are there any questions for Mr. Figuera from members of council? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So once this is tendered after today, when do you expect work to proceed? I note that it will approximately 3 weeks. Do we have and that it's about a 270-day timeline?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Patterson. Yes, that's correct. Once we award the work, we expect potentially within 3 weeks they would begin construction. However, we would have a construction kickoff meeting before then to receive a schedule and to also go over the constraints. So what we're going to try to do is work with the contractor to try to avoid July and August, obviously, next year. That was one of the reasons why we delayed this time. So we'll be working with the contractor and the contractor schedule on that.
Councillor Burden and Councillor Beal.
Very pleased to see the comments with regard to communication with businesses and residents. But 270 days, by my calculations, takes us roughly into August, and I'm sure that that's a liberal estimate of the time it's going to take to complete. What's the real time?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Burden. This particular contractor has indicated they can do it in 240 days. As I said, we will work with them to endeavor to get it done before July.
And if you're not able to have it done before the beginning of the summer, will you suspend work and complete in the fall?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Burden, what we will do is we will have a meeting with the contractor to get them to present a methodology so that we can minimize any impact on business. And then we will have to decide if it's something we can proceed with without impacting business too much. The problem with delaying till the fall, that huge pause. Basically, the contractor is going to have to demobilize and remobilize again, which will likely affect the actual cost at the end of the day. So. Our main goal is to try to have a continuous project beginning to end. We're going to be working with the contractor to make sure that we'll do everything we can to try to stay out of July. And then if there is going to be an impact on July, to work with the contractor to adjust a methodology to try to minimize any impact on business.
Another follow-up?
Yeah, I just want to remind you of the meeting that was held here some months ago, where the businesses were assured that there would be no interruption to their business during the summer months.
Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Your Worship. And following along the train of thought presented by Councillor Burden, I seem to recall in that meeting, and perhaps another one, that the goal was the plan is to start closer to 19A, so that work further along would, that the business area would hopefully be completed before that part of the street farther up, understanding that, some projects, of course, some parts of it just need to flow along. So well done. Anyway, it sounds like there's a plan in place. Very pleased as well to see that there's a communication strategy as well, both for businesses and people who live on the street. I'm sure, I would think that they're all very aware of it, but I think as well to have ongoing communication to really let them know the details once things start go a long way. So thank you. Well done.
Any other members of council have any comments? Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for the presentation and the in-depth. And echo that that I'm not sure if council, and I'm going to ask, if we could get some updates as this project goes along, and that the business community and residents and everything on Corfield will be getting updates and that, and I'm just wondering if we could maybe kind of get the same ones sent out to us by email or what have you.
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Patterson, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to reflect upon the meeting we had with the PDBA the other night, and I just wanted to, I don't think there's any doubt that the PDBA's understanding is that the work wouldn't be happening in the summertime in those peak months. The notion of some sort of methodology to minimize the impact is new information, I think, that we've received tonight. My take on what the PDBAs and the liaison may wish to speak to it further, their impression is that the commitment from the city was that work would not take place during those busy summer months, and that it would be buttoned up and continued on in the fall. And I think that's the impression that they were given, and I don't believe that they're making any assumptions or jumping to any conclusions. I think they were probably told that.
Your comment, Mr. Figueroa?
Yeah, if I may, Your Worship, we're going to do absolutely everything we can to make sure that we minimize any impact in those months. The issue with or the difficulty is with construction projects, the weather becomes a big issue. I will certainly ensure that the communication lines stay open, and we will certainly push the contractor to stay out of those months. They've indicated 240 days. That puts us a little bit into July, if you work it out in the calendar. We are going to look for any ways that we can ensure that we give the best opportunity to stay out of July. That's pretty much the best I can say, other than if we are unable to do that, there would likely be additional costs that come out of this for having the contractor demob and remob again to finish it up.
We'll have to come back to council with the good or bad news. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so I sit on the PDBA, and I know that there's been numerous communication with the PDBA and the concerns around the mall there on Corfield. And it's my understanding that, you know, when you do construction, it's an inconvenience. And it's my understanding that you're going to work with the business owners down there to mitigate anything that comes up without any unforeseen circumstances. And so I'm quite satisfied with the response of staff. I think you've gone above and beyond what is required of you, and I see this as a positive step forward. Let's get that done. And can't you do it in such a way that you're not blocking that? If you do go over into July, can't you work somewhere else on there and get the work at the mall done first?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Powell, Corfield will never be completely blocked off at any time. It's a matter of how at the end it's going to be grading, and the final grading and the placement of the asphalt is right at the end. That would be right at the end of the project, and it is possible to do that without completely shutting down the road if they're not going to make it.
And so basically, if you're not shutting down the road, the access from Corfield to that mall will not be impacted. Is that what you're saying?
If I may, Your Worship, through to Councillor Powell, what I'm saying is the access will never be cut off from there.
I'm going to make a suggestion, something I omitted to talk about to Mrs. Comas and yourself, is that I would suggest respectfully that we send a notice to the residents of Bagshaw that while construction is going on Corfield, there possibly going to be more traffic on Bagshaw. Because I have an individual that comes to see me every once in a while who lives on Bagshaw, and there is a concern there. So I wonder if we could do some sort of a notice to residents saying that Corfield's going to be under construction for the next 240 days, and it's anticipated that traffic may choose just out of rather than driving down Corfield, may want to go through Bagshaw to get to wherever they want to go in that mall. Suggestion.
If I may, Your Worship, that can be done. Yeah.
That okay? Okay. Any other comments or questions? This is something I'm sure we'll be following up. There'll be regular notices issued. And as I said the other night, Murphy's Law might very well come into play here. You never know. Anything can go wrong. I won't go any further than that. Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor of the three recommendations? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. The next report, Mrs. Comas, it's on the Shelley Road Center Operating Agreement. I need a mover and a seconder for all the recommendations. Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Beale. Mrs. Comas, I'm sorry.
Yes, Your Worship. The Bard to Broadway has been the tenant of Shelley Road Center for the last 5 years and have indicated a willingness to renew their lease for an additional 5 years. They are finding quite a bit of success using the facility and are anxious to carry on. And so with a few minor amendments to some operating hours, the agreement is pretty much as it has been, and the recommendations are as per the agenda.
Any questions for Mrs. Comas? Councillor Burton.
Yeah, just one quick one. Is there going to be any impact on Bard to Broadway's activity from the proposed community neighborhood park development? The agreement refers to them maintaining the grounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now, the Bard to Broadway are actually very supportive of the park or the fundraising activities and the proposal for the park. They see that as a big benefit, so it's not an issue for them.
It's not a financial issue?
No, it's not a financial issue.
Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I think this has been a successful partnership, and I want to thank the proponents for adding to the cultural mosaic of our city. And so I think that this is a good one for us to support. Again, I think it's a deal, really. So I'm fully supportive of signing another 5-year agreement. Hopefully that it succeeds and can do something bigger and better next time.
On that note, unless there's any other comments or questions, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. We have one bylaw this evening, Council. It's the Bylaw Offense Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw 2017, number 1486.7, housekeeping amendments to update ticketable offenses. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Oates, seconded by Councillor Beale. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. You have questions?
Yes, please. Thank you. When I was looking back and everything, is the only change is the deletion of the keeping of bees in this bylaw? If I may just clarify.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Patterson, the animal control bylaw has been amended just due to sequencing, but the other items have been added because there were no fines. So, for example, in the sanitary sewer bylaw, there were infractions, but no corresponding fine amounts.
Thank you.
And bees were important. When I found out that bees weren't allowed, I couldn't believe it, because bees are an endangered species. I had a bee in my bonnet. Yes, I did. That's a very good point. Okay, I'm going to call Oh, you have a question. Go ahead.
A comment. There's an organization in our community that feeds feral cats. Are you aware of that? They're actually doing good work. And yet, it's a finable offense. Maybe we should look at that sometime in the future. Maybe we should look at that sometime in the future.
Okay. All right. On the feral cat notice, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. All right. New business. I'm going to start off tonight with new business, if I may, members of council, because I have 5 items. I want to remind everybody that Saturday, is November the 11th, Parksville Remembrance Day of the ceremony here at the Cenotaph at 11 o'clock at City Hall. Very important. And there's a parade from Mount Arrowsmith Branch 49 Royal Canadian Legion starting at 10:30. And my representative will be there, Councillor Powell. And all offices are closed on November 13th as a statutory holiday in observance of the remembrance. Becoming more and more of an important day as we look what's happening all over the place, including North America. The Parksville Fire Department Food and Toy Drive is up and coming. It's on November the 18th and 19th. Firefighters and volunteers will be going door to door to the Parksville Fire Protection Area to collect non-perishable food items and toys. Please have bag donations outside your door for pickup between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Items may also be dropped off at the fire hall. This is a great example of a community working together for a very, very important and good cause. Next, the single-use plastic bag survey. The city is conducting an online service on the use of single-use plastic carry-out bags within city limits. The survey is on the city's website until November 30th, when we will reveal the results of that survey. The next budget meeting will be held on Thursday, November the 16th at 6 p.m. in this very forum. Public is welcome to attend in person or to provide comment to council prior to the meeting. More information is available on the city's website, and we hope that more people will participate. Lastly, the Mount Arrowsmith Brewing Company, our local company, the Mount Arrowsmith Brewing Company, which opened in April of 2017, received the Brewery of the Year Award at the 8th Annual BC Beer Awards and Festival on October 21st in Vancouver. The brewery also won first place for its Arrowsmith Blonde under the American Blonde Ale category. That's what they say, blondes have more fun. They came in second under the Saison category for the brewery Sea Run Saison. So I'm giving the French pronunciation. And that's a wonderful compliment to the work that these good folks are doing and representing our fair city. So, on that note, I'm going to go to my right. Members of council, Councillor Burton, do you have anything for new business?
I do. I got a couple of things. Although it was several weeks ago now, I did attend the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance Summit. I've been attending for, I think I've missed 2. I get more work done there in 2 days than I can get sitting in my office in 2 months. But there was some great presentations relevant to what we are discussing on a regular basis. And I went on my own dime. Further to council business, the request for a memorandum of understanding with the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association has been dropped by the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association. And instead of continuing to pursue that avenue, they're going to bring in a group called Destination International to do something, and it's a series of events under the title of Destination Next. Consists of surveys, workshops to review the surveys, and a report. And there will be a request that one of the participants be the City of Parksville, in addition to business and residents. The purpose of this is to get all the parties to agree on what is required to see tourism flourish over the next several years. So similar to the MOU, but with some defined parameters and outcomes. So coming to a tourism association near you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Worship. I am liaison to to a number of different organizations, most of which are meeting every other month right now, so I haven't been to a meeting just recently. But I would like to mention that the cold weather shelter is now open in Parksville, and that is as of November 1st, which was excellent timing this year as the snow and the Arctic front moved in November 2nd. My understanding is that there were, I believe, 6 people staying at the shelter the first night it opened. So it's up and running. Now, this is a cold weather shelter, which is better than what we've had in the past. It does mean that it is consistently available for those who need this service. However, it does mean that anyone staying there needs to be out by, I believe it's 7:30 or so, or perhaps 8, but it may even be 7:30 every morning, and it's open at 6 in the evening and provides a meal. So it's good to have this consistently available for those who need it, and it's really kudos to the work of the Oceanside Task Force on Homelessness, who has worked long and hard for this. I will be attending the Vancouver Island Library meeting coming up, but that's not coming up quite yet, and the Arts Council. But this Thursday I will be attending an event with the Oceanside Health and Wellness Network. There's a large event that is inviting people from many different organizations, all committed to working together collaboratively to move the needle on health and wellness in this area.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance meeting, that conference every year, which is about a day and a half. Yourself, myself, and Councillor Patterson attended. I would encourage all members of council to go. I think it's very, very relevant. Some good topics. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm the representative to the Parksville Downtown Business Association. A lively topic of discussion was the Corfield upgrade. They were very pleased to know that the city has decided to buy some bright lights for the sequoia tree. To start my morning, which was my birthday, I had to go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting, which was extremely lively, and I had to have the help of Councillor Burden because I hadn't been to council to update everybody about what was going on. They had a very successful gala. That was a big topic of discussion. On Friday, the mayor, myself, Councillor Patterson, and Councillor Salter met with 2 new doctors who are in our community now. They're taking new patients. There is a wait list. So if you don't have a doctor, get that word out there fast because they're going really fast. Really lovely people. They're going to be here for a long time. They bought a house. It's good to go.
They're young. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I know I mentioned it in one of our budget meetings, but I want to mention again the tour that we did down at the water plant. Councillor Beale, Councillor Powell, Councillor Burden, and myself, some representatives of the RDN, some representatives, I think, of the engineering company. We went down on the 27th of October and got a tour of that project. And you know, when you see it, you really understand how big and how huge this infrastructure project is, and the number of jobs that it's providing for people down there, to see the men and women that are working in the construction down there. It's really good, and it's something that sometimes you forget, the employment that's created by it. And the reason why I did it, I was inspired by the Chamber, by something that was said at the Chamber Gala, actually. One of the speakers early in the night stood up and thanked all the Chamber members, because without the Chamber members, people wouldn't have jobs and be able to live and work and stay in this area. So they thanked them for providing good employment for people to be here. And I reflected on that when I was down at the water plant tour. So it was a pretty extensive tour. It's a huge project. There's concrete and cranes all over the place. We went up and we watched where they were actually watched them to fuse the pipe and put it together. And the only thing that day that outshone the number of jobs and that was there was the obvious pride that Mr. Squire had in showing us that project. You know, it was such a feel-good day, and you know, anybody that wants to know anything about the water plant or anything about what we're doing or what the technicalities of it, go down and spend some time there and take the opportunity to educate yourself, because it was a really good day. It was the obvious pride was there, and as if it was staged, we were down there watching he took us down to where the line crossed underneath the riverbed. And as if it was staged, here it is, Chinook salmon coming upstream as we're there, standing down looking at it. Right? I kidded with him, did he have a remote control fish? And he said no, it was the actual salmon. But we watched it for quite some time. And you know, to see an infrastructure project of that magnitude and that much heavy equipment there around it, and to see the fish as if there's nothing going on up there, it really reassured me that we're taking all the necessary precautions and that the project is sensitive to the environment. So that was I really enjoyed that tour. I'm looking forward to doing another one as it moves on down there, and I know that the other councillors expressed to me that they were all impressed as well. Also attended the budget meeting. I went to the PDBA there, annual meeting with the PDBA a couple of nights ago. I won't go so far as make a motion, because I don't think it's my place to do it, but I think it's something that we really should consider. Maybe it's time for us to re-sign that memorandum of understanding. It's the last time that it was signed was 5 years ago, and it'd be symbolic in showing the city's renewed commitment to that agreement instead of there. So I won't make that motion, but I leave it out there for people to consider. Maybe it's something someone wants to do. Maybe not. Maybe you're happy leaving it as it is. But, you know, if we're going to live by a document, there's nothing wrong with revisiting and freshening it up or re-signing it every now and then. And lastly, I'm going to miss the next two meetings because I'm going to be out of town.
Okay, thanks very much. And just an offshoot from your comment, having people go down there, you're right, people are more than welcome, but call first. We'll make reservations so that staff can go down. Don't show up on site. Anyway, but no, and one of the interesting things about what you've said is that when that water treatment plant is built, it's going to be built so that tourists can go there. But yeah, you're right. Anybody that wants to go, anybody that's watching or listening that wants to go and visit that facility, give myself a call, or give Mrs. Comas a call, or give Mr. Squire a call, and we can make reservations to have you go. It is an excellent tour. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. As mentioned by other councillors, I attended the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance with the Mayor and the Downtown Business Association meeting, and the meeting with our two new doctors, which was really lovely. A lot of information. They're coming from Europe, so I talked a lot about differences in communities and how things are done, and maybe we could get some other things done better. I'm the liaison for the youth in the community, and I just have to say that they meet tomorrow, so unfortunately I'm kind of ahead of the game. But last week, when I was away at Bahia, they were given a check for $1,500 for their contribution towards the splash park and that as well. So they're great kids. They also did a homelessness on Halloween, and got quite a few different goods and services. I've talked a little bit about the Recreation Services Master Plan and those dates that are coming forward, and I do urge people in their communities to attend. Would you have known that the soccer field had to go, her group had to go somewhere else, and were bumped for different sports and that? Probably not, unless they'd come forward. Next week is also the ODCA meeting, and they have a guest speaker who I will be in attendance for. But otherwise, I've still been busy, and I apologize.